Welcome to my channel. Please support my channel with subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. The rain tapped gently against the window, casting long blurry streaks across the tiny apartment living room. Emma Harper sat cross-legged on her threadbare couch, staring at the pile of overdue bills stacked neatly on the coffee table. Each envelope felt heavier than the last. Rent, electricity, phone. Every day felt like a countdown. And she was running out of time. Emma had moved to Seattle 2 years ago, chasing dreams that now felt more like distant stars she could never reach. She had a good job once, in marketing, but a sudden layoff had turned her world upside down. Freelance work helped, but it wasn't enough to cover the basics. She felt herself slipping. Not just financially but emotionally. The apartment was quiet except for the rain, but the quiet wasn't comforting, it was mocking. Emma's mind raced. She had already called her credit card company to defer payments, begged friends for small loans, and even considered selling her beloved guitar, the one thing that made her feel alive. Yet the mounting fear didn't leave her. And then there was the rent. Her landlord, Mr. Bennett, had been patient, almost unusually so. But patience had its limits. Emma knew she was at that tipping point. She dreaded the call she might have to make. A soft knock at the door startled her. It wasn't loud, but it broke the oppressive silence. Emma's heart jumped. Who could it be at this hour? She wasn't expecting anyone. "Emma, are you home?" A deep, calm voice called. It was Mr. Bennett. He rarely came around without notice. Emma's stomach twisted. She opened the door just a crack. "Yes, Mr. Bennett. What's wrong?" He stepped inside, holding an envelope. There was a pause, a weight in the room she couldn't quite place. "I thought I'd bring this to you personally," he said softly. "It's the rent." Emma swallowed hard. She had expected anger, a lecture, maybe even the threat of eviction. Instead, she found herself staring at a man in his early 40s, with kind eyes that seemed to see right through her worries. There was something gentle about him, something that made her want to explain everything without shame. I don't have it," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I tried," but he held up a hand, stopping her. "I know, Emma. I know exactly how hard things have been for you. Life doesn't always go the way we plan, does it?" Her heart ached at his understanding. She had expected judgment. Instead, she found warmth. She wanted to collapse, to cry, but she held herself together. Mr. Bennett took a seat on the edge of the couch, close enough that she could feel the faint warmth of his presence. "I won't lie," he continued. "This isn't easy for me either. I have responsibilities, bills, and yet, I can't turn my back on someone trying to fight through every obstacle life throws at them." Emma's breath caught. She hadn't realized how lonely she had felt until that moment. The honesty in his voice, the unspoken sympathy, stirred something in her. It was not just gratitude, it was more profound, a connection she hadn't expected to find. I don't know what to say," she murmured. "You don't have to say anything," he replied, leaning back. "Just promise me you won't give up. I'll figure something out. A little more time, maybe even some flexibility with the payments. We'll work this out." Tears pricked at the corner of her eyes. Emma had spent so many nights alone, imagining the worst, fearing eviction, fearing failure. And here was a man, a stranger in some ways, offering her hope without asking for anything in return. She wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, but she hesitated. This wasn't supposed to feel like anything beyond landlord and tenant. Yet, in that quiet apartment, with the rain as a soft rhythm in the background, something shifted between them, something unspoken, tender, almost magnetic. I can't thank you enough," Emma whispered. "Really, I don't know how I could ever." He smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "Just keep going. That's all I ask." Emma watched him stand, feeling the sudden weight of reality settling back in. He had offered her hope, but tomorrow would still be hard. Rent would still be due. Life would still challenge her. Yet, for the first time in months, she felt a spark of warmth, a sense that maybe she wasn't entirely alone in this struggle. As he walked to the door, he paused and turned. "Emma, be careful. Don't let desperation push you into decisions you'll regret." She nodded, a lump forming in her throat. She wanted to ask him what he meant, but the words stuck. And just like that, he was gone, leaving her alone with the rain and the quiet apartment once more. Emma sank back onto the couch, clutching the envelope. Inside was a note. "We'll figure this out, one step at a time." Her mind raced. Why did she feel something more than gratitude? Why did her heart flutter in a way it hadn't in years? She had never considered Mr. Bennett anything but a landlord, a friendly neighbor at most. And yet, now, every interaction felt charged. every glance heavy with meaning she couldn't yet define. The night grew darker, the rain stronger. Emma stared at the city lights outside her window, thinking about how quickly life could turn, how close she had been to losing everything, and how one unexpected gesture of kindness could awaken feelings she had buried long ago. And then she heard a soft knock again, quieter this time, almost hesitant. Emma froze, her heart skipping. Could it be him again? But why would he? The knock came once more, persistent, and Emma realized her night was far from over. There was something unresolved, something waiting, and she felt both dread and anticipation intertwined like a delicate dance she couldn't stop. Her hand trembled as she walked to the door, knowing that opening it could change everything. And in that moment, she didn't just feel broke or desperate. She felt alive. Emma's hand hovered over the doorknob, her heart hammering like a drum. The knock came again, soft but deliberate. She took a deep breath, telling herself it was probably just a neighbor or a delivery. But somehow, she knew it wasn't. Slowly, she opened the door, and there he was, Mr. Bennett, standing there in a light drizzle, holding a small bag in his hand. His hair was damp, and a few raindrops clung to his coat, but he didn't seem to care. His expression was calm, almost tender, and when he saw her, a faint smile touched his lips. "Didn't want to leave you worrying tonight," he said quietly. "Thought you might need a little company." Emma's breath caught. Company. Her mind raced, thinking of all the possibilities, all the lines they shouldn't cross. Yet, there was something in the way he said it, a gentle concern that made her step aside and gesture for him to come in. The apartment felt smaller, warmer somehow. The rain outside had intensified, drumming against the windows like a heartbeat. Emma set the envelope down on the coffee table, unsure of what to do with her hands. "Sit," he said, motioning to the couch. "I didn't bring anything fancy, just a few things to make the night easier." He placed the bag gently on the table. Inside were a couple of warm sandwiches, a bottle of water, and a small candle. It wasn't much, but it felt like a lifeline thrown in the middle of a storm. Emma felt a strange flutter in her chest. It was ridiculous. He was her landlord, someone she should be careful around. But tonight, all rules seemed to blur. Loneliness had a way of opening doors you didn't know were locked. "Thank you," she whispered, sitting down. He sat beside her, close but not intrusive. There was a pause, filled only by the sound of the rain. Neither spoke for a few moments, letting the quiet stretch. And yet, it wasn't empty. It was full of unspoken things, concern, care, and a subtle tension that made Emma's pulse quicken. "I can't believe you did all this for me," she said finally. "I mean, you didn't have to." "I know," he replied, his voice steady, "but I wanted to." "You're trying so hard, Emma. I see that, and it matters to me that you're not drowning alone." Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she quickly looked away, embarrassed. "It's hard to even ask for help," she admitted. "I'm not used to it. I've always tried to handle things on my own." He reached out, gently touching her hand. The warmth of his fingers was grounding, calming, and yet it sent an unexpected spark through her. "You don't have to do it alone," he said softly. "Not tonight, not ever. If you let me help." The words made her heart ache in ways she couldn't describe. She wanted to say something, anything, but the weight of the moment left her silent. And that silence, strange as it felt, spoke volumes. For a while, they just sat there, sharing the quiet and the storm outside. Emma found herself drawn to him, to the kindness in his eyes, the subtle strength in his presence. She had been desperate, broken, and out of time, yet somehow, here was someone who saw her, not just her struggles, but her. The rain softened, and a faint golden light from the street lamp spilled into the room. Emma felt herself relax slightly, leaning back against the couch. I feel a little less hopeless now," she admitted. "You should," he said with a small smile. "You're stronger than you think." And then, as if testing the boundaries, he leaned closer, not in a way that demanded anything, but in a way that made the air between them heavier, charged. Emma could feel his breath, smell the faint scent of rain and cedar from his coat. It was intoxicating, confusing, and yet strangely comforting. Her mind screamed caution. He was her landlord. She was broke and desperate. Everything about this felt complicated, but her heart was listening to something different, something daring her to believe, to feel, to hope. Before she could respond, a loud beep from her phone startled her. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from her bank. Her account had just been overdrawn again. Panic surged in her chest. The moment shattered slightly, reminding her that reality hadn't disappeared. Even in this brief haven, I should probably check this, she murmured, guilt and frustration mixing in her voice. He nodded, his eyes softening. Go ahead, I'll wait. Emma picked up the phone, her fingers trembling as she read the message. The numbers didn't lie. She was further behind than she thought, but when she looked up at him, she found something she hadn't expected: reassurance, support, and maybe, just maybe, a hint of something more. He stood, offering her a hand. Don't let this break you, Emma. Whatever happens, we'll face it, together. Her heart lurched. Together. The word was simple, but it carried weight she wasn't ready for. Yet, in that moment, she realized something crucial. She wasn't alone. Not really. And maybe, just maybe, this connection, unexpected, complicated, and tender, could be the thing that helped her survive the storm. Just as she reached for his hand, there was another knock at the door. This time, it was sharp, insistent, impossible to ignore. Emma froze, looking at Mr. Bennet. Who? She whispered. He frowned slightly, glancing toward the door. I don't know, he admitted, his voice low, carrying a tension she hadn't heard before. Her heart pounded. The warmth, the comfort, the connection, it all hung on a fragile thread. And now, something unknown was about to enter the room. Something that could change everything. The rain outside seemed to intensify, a prelude to whatever storm was about to hit their quiet apartment. Emma's fingers brushed his briefly, a fleeting spark, before she stepped toward the door. Her mind raced with questions, fears, and a sudden, electric anticipation. And then she opened it. Emma's hand trembled as she gripped the doorknob, her pulse racing. She had just shared a moment with Mr. Bennet, a moment of connection she hadn't expected, and now the sharp, insistent knock on her door threatened to shatter it. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door wider. Standing there was a young man, probably in his mid-20s, wearing a rain-soaked hoodie. He looked nervous, shifting from foot to foot, glancing past her into the apartment. Hi, I'm sorry to bother you, he stammered. I think I left something in here earlier. Emma frowned, unsure what he meant. She didn't recognize him. But before she could respond, Mr. Bennet stepped closer, a protective edge in his voice. Can I help you? He asked calmly but firmly, his eyes sharp. The young man looked startled but nodded. Yeah, I accidentally left my backpack when I was helping, moving some things in the building earlier. I didn't mean to intrude. Emma's brow furrowed. He was polite, but something about him made her uneasy. Mr. Bennet, however, seemed to sense it too. He didn't relax. Instead, he gently positioned himself slightly in front of her, subtly protective. All right, he said. Come in quickly, get your bag, and then you should go. It's late. The young man nodded, ducking inside. Emma stepped aside, letting him pass. Her heart was still thumping, partly from the earlier moment with Mr. Bennet, partly from the tension of this new, unexpected presence. As the young man retrieved his backpack, Emma noticed the way he glanced at Mr. Bennet, not just politely, but curiously, almost with a hint of something unspoken. Emma felt a pang of confusion. Why did it feel like there was more between them than just a forgotten bag? Thanks, the young man mumbled, slinging the backpack over his shoulder. He gave Emma a quick, awkward smile before turning toward Mr. Bennet. And thank you for letting me in. Mr. Bennet nodded politely, but his jaw tightened slightly. There was something in his eyes, a spark of protectiveness, a subtle warning that Emma noticed immediately. She realized that this brief intrusion had shifted the air between them. Once the young man left, the apartment felt different. The warmth that had been building earlier, the connection Emma had felt with Mr. Bennet, was tinged now with something more complicated. An awareness of boundaries, of the fragility of this bond she was beginning to feel. She sank back onto the couch, trying to steady her thoughts. That was odd, she said softly, her voice betraying her nerves. Mr. Bennet sat beside her again. Closer this time, though still careful. Sometimes, life throws little surprises at the worst possible moments, he said, offering her a reassuring smile. But it's okay. You're safe here. Emma's heart softened at his words. Safe. For the first time in a long time, she felt that word truly meant something. His presence was calming, grounding her racing thoughts. I don't know what I'd do without you, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. You'd figure it out, he said, shaking his head slightly, a gentle smile on his lips. You always do, but you don't have to do it alone. The rain outside had softened to a steady drizzle, the city lights casting a soft glow through the window. Emma glanced at Mr. Bennet, feeling a pull she didn't quite understand. There was a magnetism in him, quiet but undeniable, and she felt herself drawn to it despite all the reasons she should resist. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. She picked it up and froze. It was another notice from her landlord. Well, from the bank this time. Her account was in danger of being frozen if she didn't transfer funds immediately. Panic flared in her chest, but this time, Mr. Bennet's calm presence soothed her. "You don't have to worry about that tonight," he said softly. "We'll figure it out together. Just breathe." Emma nodded, letting his words sink in. She felt tears threatening to spill again, but this time, they were not just tears of fear, they were relief, gratitude, and something else she couldn't name. Something tender, fragile, and stirring. She glanced at him, noticing the way his eyes met hers with quiet intensity. There was no rush, no pressure, just an understanding that lingered in the space between them. Emma's chest tightened, and she realized she had begun to care for him in ways she hadn't expected, ways that scared her as much as they excited her. For a moment, the world outside seemed to disappear. The bills, the overdue notices, the struggle, they all faded into the background. All that mattered was this quiet connection, this fragile, delicate spark that had ignited in the middle of her desperation. And then, without warning, there was a sudden knock at the door again. This one was louder, more urgent, impossible to ignore. Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Not again," she whispered, looking at Mr. Bennet. He frowned, his protective instincts instantly on alert. "Stay here," he said firmly. "I'll check it." Emma's mind raced. Who could it be this time? And why did she feel a strange mix of fear and anticipation? As he walked toward the door, she felt a wave of something unexpected. She wanted to stop him, to stay close, to let this moment linger. But reality pressed in, reminding her that boundaries existed, and that life had a way of complicating even the simplest connections. Mr. Bennet opened the door, and the streetlight spilled into the apartment, casting a long shadow. Emma held her breath, and then she saw her. A woman, soaking wet, with eyes that burned with recognition, and something darker, something Emma couldn't yet name. "Bennet," the woman said, her voice low but sharp. "We need to talk." Emma's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a knock. This was a storm about to crash into the fragile calm of her night, into the tender connection she had just begun to feel. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. As she watched the woman standing in the doorway, she was tall, with striking features and an air of confidence that made Emma feel instantly uneasy. There was something familiar about the way she looked at Mr. Bennet, an intensity that made Emma's stomach twist. "Bennet," the woman repeated, her tone sharper this time. "We need to talk. Now." Mr. Bennet's face tightened, a flicker of something Emma couldn't place crossing his features. "It's late, Rachel. Can this wait?" Rachel, so that was her name, shook her head vehemently. "No, not tonight. It can't wait. It's important." Emma felt a cold wave of anxiety wash over her. She had been caught up in the warmth of Mr. Bennet's presence, in the fragile, gentle connection growing between them, and now something sudden had arrived to disrupt it. Rachel stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Mr. Bennet didn't stop her, but his jaw was set, his protective instincts sharp. Emma instinctively stepped back, unsure where she fit in this suddenly charged room. "Emma," Mr. Bennet said quietly, turning to her. "Stay here." Emma wanted to protest, to be part of the conversation, but she felt paralyzed by curiosity and fear. She stayed rooted to the couch, her hands clutching her knees as the two adults faced each other. Rachel's gaze flicked to Emma briefly, sharp and calculating. "And you are?" she asked, her voice carrying an edge that made Emma's skin prickle. "Emma," she whispered, barely audible. Rachel nodded, as if filing the information away. Then her attention returned to Mr. Bennet. "We need to sort this out. You can't keep avoiding it." "I'm not avoiding anything," he replied, calm but firm. I don't want to do this in front of her." Emma felt a twinge of jealousy mixed with confusion. The warmth she had been feeling, the tenderness she had begun to trust, was suddenly threatened. And yet, she didn't fully understand what it was that made her heart ache. Kit wasn't just Rachel. It was the tension, the intimacy in the air that now felt complicated and fragile. Rachel's eyes softened, just slightly, but the edge in her voice remained. "Bennet, you know why I'm here. It's about us. About decisions that can't wait. You can't just focus on someone else?" Emma's chest tightened. Someone else. Her mind raced. Did she mean Emma? No, surely not. But a part of her felt that pull of fear she hadn't expected, fear that this connection she had begun to trust could vanish in an instant. Mr. Bennet exhaled slowly. "Rachel, it's complicated. I care about you, yes, but I'm also responsible for Emma. She's struggling right now, and she needs help. I can't just ignore that." Emma's heart lurched. She needed help. She needed support. And he had been there, offering more than just kindness. He had offered connection, hope, a glimpse of something more than survival. Rachel stepped closer to him, her expression softening into something almost human, almost vulnerable. I know, and I understand that, but there are boundaries, Bennett, there are promises. And tonight, you need to face that, before it's too late. Emma watched, her mind spinning, as the tension between the two adults filled the small apartment. The storm outside seemed to echo the storm inside her chest, the mix of longing, confusion, and fear that had taken root in her heart. Mr. Bennett ran a hand through his hair, his calm exterior faltering just slightly. I didn't expect this tonight, he admitted, almost to himself. But you're right, we can't put it off. Rachel nodded once, sharply, then turned her gaze to Emma again. You need to stay out of this, she said firmly. It's nothing to do with you, but it could get messy. Emma swallowed hard, realizing how fragile this moment was. She had felt alive tonight, connected, maybe even seen for the first time in months. And now, that fragile warmth was threatened not by her struggles, but by the complicated pasts and entanglements of the adults around her. She sat silently, watching them, feeling a mix of helplessness and longing. She wanted to reach out to Mr. Bennett, to tell him how much his kindness meant to her. But she knew Rachel was right, this was a conversation she couldn't be part of. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The rain outside had softened to a gentle drizzle, but inside the apartment, the tension was palpable. Every glance, every breath, every unspoken word carried weight. Emma felt her heart ache, both for herself and for the complicated connection she had begun to build with Mr. Bennett. Finally, Rachel spoke again. Bennett, we'll resolve this, but tonight, you need to make a choice. And you need to be honest with yourself and with Emma. She's counting on you, whether you realize it or not. Emma's chest tightened. Counting on him? She hadn't expected to feel so deeply for someone she had only just begun to trust. And yet, in the quiet storm of her life, he had become a tether, a source of light in the darkness. Rachel nodded to Emma one last time, her expression unreadable, and then she left. The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Emma and Mr. Bennett alone once more. The apartment felt quieter, but heavier now. The intimacy, the tenderness they had shared earlier, was now laced with complication, tension, and unspoken questions. Emma turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. Who was that? He exhaled, running a hand down his face. Someone from my past. Someone I need to sort things out with, but she's gone now. You're safe. Emma wanted to believe him. She wanted to feel that warmth again, that connection that had made her heart feel alive. But a part of her was wary, unsure if the storm had truly passed or if it had just begun. Mr. Bennett stepped closer, his presence steady and grounding. Emma, tonight hasn't been easy, but I need you to know, I care about you, more than you might realize. Her breath caught. The words were simple, but the weight behind them made her chest ache. She wanted to respond, to reach out, to tell him everything she felt, but the events of the evening had left her heart and mind tangled, unsure where desire ended and gratitude began. All she knew was that, despite the chaos, the tension, and the unexpected storms in her life, one thing was clear: she didn't want him to leave. And in that quiet, complicated moment, as the rain tapped softly against the window once more, Emma realized that her life and her heart had changed forever. The apartment felt almost too quiet after Rachel's departure. Emma sat on the couch, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater, her mind spinning. She had felt a spark with Mr. Bennett earlier, something gentle, comforting, and unexpectedly tender. But now, that spark was tangled with confusion, fear, and curiosity about his past. Mr. Bennett stood by the window, looking out at the city lights reflecting on the wet streets. The soft drizzle outside made everything feel intimate and fragile, as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. Emma watched him, noting the way his shoulders were slightly tense, the way his jaw moved as if he was wrestling with something inside. Emma, he said finally, turning toward her. His voice was soft, but it carried a weight that made her heart skip. I know tonight's been complicated. I didn't mean for it to be overwhelming. Emma shook her head slowly. It's not overwhelming, just unexpected. I didn't expect to feel anything tonight. He took a step closer, closing some of the distance between them. You don't have to put your feelings into words. Just know, I'm here. I care about you. And I want to help you not just tonight, but always, if you'll let me. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. His words were genuine, steady, and comforting in a way she hadn't felt in months. She wanted to reach out, to let herself be seen fully, to trust that this connection wasn't fleeting. She stood, hesitating for a moment before moving closer to him. I've felt so lost lately, she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. I didn't think anyone could understand or care. He smiled gently, a mixture of relief and tenderness in his expression. I do, Emma. I've seen your struggle, and I want to be here, even if just to help you through it. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the weight of the world outside melted away. The storm had passed, leaving behind the soft drizzle and the gentle glow of streetlights. But inside, a new storm was brewing, a storm of longing, connection, and quiet desire. Emma's breath caught. I feel something, too, she whispered. I don't know what it is, but it feels real. He stepped even closer, until there was only a whisper of space between them. It is real, he said softly. And it's okay to feel it, to admit it. You don't have to hide it from me. Emma's heart raced, and a shiver ran down her spine. She wanted to believe him, to let herself feel the emotions she had kept buried for so long. But a part of her hesitated, remembering the chaos of the past few days, the intrusions, the uncertainty. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Scared of losing myself, of losing you. He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. You won't lose me, he said firmly. Not if you let me in. We'll face everything together. Your struggles, your fears, everything. Emma's chest tightened. She felt a mix of relief, longing, and something deeper, a connection that went beyond kindness or comfort. It was rare, fragile, and beautiful. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe fully, to let herself lean into the warmth of his presence. The rain continued to patter softly against the window, a soothing backdrop to the growing intimacy in the room. They stood there for a moment, close enough to feel each other's warmth, but careful, respectful, and unhurried. Emma realized that this was different from anything she had experienced. This was not desperation or fleeting attraction. This was connection, care, and the beginning of trust. I want to try, she whispered finally. To trust, and not just survive, but feel alive again. He smiled, his eyes soft and unwavering. Then we'll take it one step at a time, he said. No rush, no pressure. Just us, figuring this out together. Emma nodded, feeling tears prick at her eyes, not of sadness, but of hope. She had been broken, desperate, and out of time. And yet, here he was, offering her not just help, but a chance to feel again, to reconnect with herself and with someone who truly cared. As the night stretched on, they talked quietly, sharing stories, fears, and small dreams. The city outside seemed distant, unimportant, as if the world had shrunk to this one apartment, this one connection that mattered more than anything else. And as Emma finally sank back onto the couch, resting her head against the soft cushions, she realized something profound. She had survived the storm, but more importantly, she had found someone who could walk through it with her. Her hand brushed against Mr. Bennet's. Tentative but seeking, he intertwined his fingers with hers, a silent promise, a grounding touch that said more than words ever could. In that quiet, rain-kissed apartment, Emma Harper felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope, warmth, and the fragile beginnings of love. But even as the night drew on, she couldn't shake the feeling that life had more twists ahead. The past, the struggles, and the uncertainties were still there, waiting. And yet, for the first time, she felt ready to face them, not alone, but with someone who truly cared. The first light of dawn filtered through the rain-streaked window, casting a soft glow over Emma's small apartment. The night had been long, filled with unexpected visitors, emotional turbulence, and moments that had left her heart racing. And yet, she had survived it. More than that, she had begun to feel alive again. Mr. Bennet sat beside her on the couch, his hand still gently holding hers. The warmth of his presence was steady, grounding, and Emma felt a sense of calm she hadn't known in months. Morning, he said softly, his eyes meeting hers. Morning, she replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. She felt lighter, somehow, despite all the challenges still looming. The bills, the rent, the precariousness of her life, they hadn't disappeared. But for the first time, she didn't feel entirely alone in facing them. He squeezed her hand gently. We'll figure it out, Emma, one step at a time. You're not alone anymore. Her chest tightened with gratitude and something more tender. Something she had felt growing in the quiet moments they had shared. She realized she didn't just trust him, she cared for him deeply, and she sensed, quietly, that he felt the same. I don't know what I'd do without you, she admitted. You don't have to think about that, he said, smiling softly. Just focus on today, on moving forward. We'll handle everything else together. Emma felt tears prickle at the corners of her eyes, not of sadness, but of relief and hope. She had been broken, desperate, and out of time. And now, she had a chance not just to survive, but to rebuild, to trust, and perhaps, to love. They spent the morning talking quietly, planning small steps to get her finances back on track, discussing potential freelance work, and even joking softly about little things in life. The laughter was light, but it carried a weight of relief. A signal that life could be gentle again. At one point, Emma looked at him, her heart fluttering. I feel different now, stronger, like I can actually handle things. With you here. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. That's because you are stronger, he said softly. And you don't have to face anything alone. Not anymore. The tension, the storms, and the complications of the past few days hadn't disappeared. But Emma realized that love, care, and trust didn't always arrive perfectly. They arrived in moments, in gestures, in quiet assurances that someone would be there for you when it mattered most. And for Emma, that was enough. By late afternoon, the sun broke through the clouds, scattering golden light across the city. Emma and Mr. Bennet sat near the window, sipping coffee and watching life continue outside. The world felt vast and full of possibilities. Instead of overwhelming and threatening, Emma leaned her head slightly against his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his presence. It was a small gesture, but it carried meaning, a silent acknowledgement that she was no longer alone in her struggles, and that there was room in her life for hope, warmth, and connection. I don't know what the future holds, she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. He held her hand tighter. Neither do I, but we'll face it together. That's enough for now. Emma closed her eyes, letting herself savor the moment. She had been at her lowest, broke, desperate, and out of time. Yet here she was, feeling a fragile but real happiness, and an unexpected love that promised to help her carry the weight of life's challenges. And as the city pulsed with life outside, Emma Harper realized something profound. Sometimes, the people who see you when you're broken, who reach out without judgment, and who offer a hand when you've nearly given up, they are the ones who can change everything. Her life wasn't perfect. Her struggles weren't gone. But with Mr. Bennet by her side, she knew she had a chance not just to survive, but to thrive, to love, and to be loved in return. For the first time in a long while, Emma smiled fully, her heart lighter, her spirit lifted, and her soul open to the possibilities that tomorrow could bring. The storm had passed, but its lessons remained. And in its wake, something beautiful had begun, something tender, real, and hopeful. Emma didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: she would face it with someone who truly cared, and that, she realized, was more than enough. The end.